Hey everyone, it's Jason and welcome to another episode of Martial Arts Theater 3000. Today's a very special episode. It's another collaboration with the Asian Cinema Circle, and the topic we're doing today is how I got into martial arts movies. I'm really excited for this one, and please definitely check out the description box below. I'll put everyone else's video from the Asian Cinema Circle as they come in. Yeah, and definitely a shout out to everyone else in the ACC, and please go and subscribe and watch all their other videos as well, because all the channels are really good. And the members of the Asian Cinema Circle are Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society, Hong Kong Blurays, The Fanatical Dragon, Film Fan Dojo, Flip Otaku, A Touch of Film, Them's Fighting Words, Kaleb's Kung Fu Cinema, Martial Arts Film Freak, Jake on Film, CoolMovieGram, and Amphlett Reviews. And if you're new to the channel and you love Kung Fu cinema like myself, please consider subscribing and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any episodes. So how I got into martial arts movies is definitely an interesting subject. You have to go back a while. I was born in 1979 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And around summer of 1985, my father got another job in New Jersey, in an area called Flemington, New Jersey. It was definitely out in the country. Me having been born in the city, I was out and lived on an acre of land. We had a huge yard that led into a big cornfield in the back. I was definitely in the sticks, as they'd say. So having grown up watching HBO, and I was like 3 or 4 years old watching things I probably should not have been watching, from Risky Business with my dad putting his hand over my eyes at certain scenes. And I remember something called like The Hitchhiker, some sort of show back then. Very, slideshow memories, like something Saturday the 14th, that movie. It took me a while later to realize what some of those movies were. But as I got a little older and the memories become a little clearer around 5 or 6, and when I was living in New Jersey, it's a bit hard to remember what the first moment was when I saw a martial arts movie, but I'm certain that the first one that I ever saw was 36 Chamber of Shaolin, and it was Master Killer as I knew it in the States back then. So living in New Jersey, in Philadelphia, there was a channel called Philly 57, which wasn't very far away. So New York at the time in the early 80s had, I think it was Channel 5. Like when you speak to people from New York and they were watching all these movies as well, they watched either drive-in theater, kung fu theater, black belt theater, a couple different names in New York. But the version I was watching in New Jersey was coming from Philly 57, and it was called Samurai Sunday. I can't even explain what it was when I first saw. It's like when you see something and you just know you love it, you don't really need an explanation, but I try to break it down, and in my head it's the aesthetic of the movie that I saw, and it was like my thing. This is it. Like, I didn't love cartoons and westerns and different things I saw as much. I mean, I like cartoons, but at the time when I first saw Master Killer, my jaw dropped, and I just was like, what is this? And I recall maybe watching it from the middle of the movie. It didn't start at the beginning. I came onto the channel, and I was just, wow, blown away. And the setup for Samurai Sunday was Saturdays at midnight. They would play one or maybe both movies, and then on Sunday I think they would replay them at either like 11 or 12, because I remember I'd go to church and I was just like, couldn't wait to get home to watch another kung fu movie. And the next movie I recall watching was Crippled Avengers, and back then I knew it as Mortal Kombat. Now this is a Venom mob, or Venom's movie as many call it, but at the time I didn't even know what I was watching. I saw a movie where all the characters were getting crippled, blinded, their legs chopped off, and as I was watching it, there was a scene where Lo Mang, he's a blacksmith, and he had become deaf by Chen Quan Tai, and they're all sitting there downtrodden, defeated, and that moment where they're all sitting in his blacksmith shop, the camaraderie, it just hit me, and I could just, something about what Chang Che, that director, was going for spoke to me. I remember thinking, this is so good. and you wanted to root for them because they were all teamed up, crippled together, hence Crippled Avengers. And they started to plot their revenge to stop the tyrant who was crippling, killing people in the town. It sounds like a simple plot. When you see it in action, it has a lot of heart to this movie. And by the time I saw that complete movie, I was completely hooked. So what really brought this all together for me was I was at Flemington Mall one day with my parents and went into the bookstore, and I saw this book here, From Bruce Lee to the Ninjas by Rick Myers. And so I had seen a couple movies at that point. I knew I loved Kung Fu movies, but having this is my manual that my parents bought for me in late 85 or early 1986, if I recall correctly. What was so great about it is now I had movies to look forward to. I get to see what made these movies tick and what was behind them, the actors, how they were filmed, what year they came out. And this here is such a centerpiece to this whole journey for me. And I highly recommend this book. I've given it out as a giveaway on my channel, and I'm probably going to get some more of these. Just I want to pay it forward. And if you don't have this one by Rick Myers, I mean, I know I have a lot of nostalgia for it, but I just think it's still so great, the pictures he got from Shaw Brothers, or I guess through World Northel at the time. Speaking of, when that World Northel image came up, I can't explain how exciting it was. You knew you were in for just a treat right around the bend. So as I was getting blown away by all these Hong Kong Kung Fu movies from the States, came along this guy right here, The Karate Kid. So seeing that on VHS, and this is the period where I remember to watch a VHS we had to, or at first we had to rent a VCR. So we'd rent a VCR and watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure, then return the VCR and the tape. This is how long ago and how early on this was into VHS and all that. Karate Kid was such a big inspiration, and I absolutely loved this movie. And this, I think, is what kicked off me wanting to then go take karate. So there's like a parallel from my watching the movies and then my own martial arts journey itself. And it's kind of similar to Ralph Macchio's in the way I was living in New Jersey. I didn't move to LA. Well, I did later, and that's where I am filming this. But I went to a YMCA, I started taking Isshin-ryu karate, and it's funny because as I was taking Isshin-ryu and I was looking around the class, I was like, oh, why are all the movements so different than the Kung Fu movies? And I occasionally would bust out some moves, you know, more circular movement. The sensei would say stop, and I remember being bummed out because I guess at the time I kind of wanted to be taking Kung Fu, but living in New Jersey, karate was all the rage. And I grew to love it. I went and did some competitions where I did kata, and I remember really growing to love going to class and learning karate. And after having my mind blown from the Venoms and Gordon Liu and the Karate Kid, I then stumbled upon this guy right here. You might have heard of him. And seeing Bruce Lee, it just solidified everything. I was like, oh, I'm a lifer now. I am just really like completely invested in these, and I just love these movies with all my heart. I remember seeing The Big Boss and Bruce Lee, you know, not half the movie, but for like the beginning third of it, he has to keep a promise to his mother that he won't fight. And he has a necklace to remind himself not to fight as all his family are getting beat up and bullied. When he finally is forced to fight, his necklace gets ripped off, his entire family's getting beat up, and they're pleading with him, please help us, and he unloads. I just could not believe the fury he displayed. I could just see his passion, the fury in it all, and how groundbreaking it was. Even at 6 years old, it just was clear as day. And taking a look here, this Bruce Lee box set that came out, I think 2020, 2 years ago, I definitely recommend grabbing this one. This has all his movies in it for the first time, because Enter the Dragon usually was separated, being a Warner Brothers movie. Now they have all four of his Golden Harvest movies plus Enter the Dragon. Then along the way, I started to see Sho Gasugi show up on television, and I'd see Master Ninja and different movies from him. And I remember renting Revenge of the Ninja, and I think there was some nudity at the beginning, and my father said turn this off or something, which I did. So I don't remember seeing all of Revenge of the Ninja, but I just always would look at the boxes, see different Shogasugi movies. And around this time, I also started getting the ninja magazines. I felt like a mini ninja in training. For Halloween, I dressed as a ninja and I ordered the ninja outfit in the back, I think either of the Ninja magazine or one of those martial arts catalogs, but it was authentic. It wasn't like a Halloween costume you get at the Halloween store. And on a funny note, this is the Master Ninja VHS complete set that I got last Ninja November, which is an Instagram thing where we tag Ninja November and show ninja clips. Grindhouse Seller, Instagram page, and Video Religion did a contest to win the complete Master Ninja set, and I entered it, and my name was pulled, and I won, and he mailed me every Master Ninja on VHS. And I don't have a VCR hooked up right now, so I have one though. I'm going to have to hook it up and definitely dive into these. Oh, and one more funny thing. When I won the Ninja November contest, he also mailed me this little Ninja November pin. So after watching so many of these movies for 2 years, ninja movies, American Ninja, getting so into reading the book and watching Samurai Sunday, my father yet again got transferred to Virginia at this time. This is what I would call the dark period when it comes to me watching martial arts movies, because I no longer had a TV channel showing them, so I was only able to see what I could rent down at the video store. So I remember at this time renting, I think, Shaolin vs. Lama, and a few other movies when I lived in Virginia for about a year or so. But I don't remember too much. I remember Enter the Dragon, watching that. I had seen all Bruce's movies by that point. I had the VHS set and had all 4 of them, which was awesome. So I don't remember too many movies living in Virginia. It was definitely a dark period for me when it comes to watching them. And I do recall when I was living in Virginia that I started taking, I think it was called Blackstone Taekwondo, and it was definitely one of those really tough schools with no messing around. If you did something that was wrong or messed up too bad, you had to do push-ups, go off to the side and do push-ups. It was really strict. I didn't remember enjoying that too much, but it was cool to keep my own martial arts journey going, especially when it was a little tougher to watch the movies at that time. I just was keeping the flame alive. So then in 1988, I moved back to Pittsburgh, and I still didn't see them on television, but I started to rent more, and I would go to Giant Eagle and Cranberry Mall. My Pittsburgh friends will know where that is. And I would go down to Farmore, also in Cranberry Mall, and I remember getting a lot of Bruceploitation movies at this time. And the neat thing about Bruceploitation was that it felt to me kind of like James Bond. I mean, I knew it wasn't Bruce Lee, but you could keep the spirit alive in a way, and I know some people disagree with that because they feel it's really inferior, and it definitely, it is inferior, but it was fun because as long as you have a little bit of a suspension of disbelief, you could definitely get into these movies. So there was Bruce Lee, Dragon Lee, so many of them, and it was really fun to just have a Bruce Lee experience, even though slightly watered down, sometimes very watered down. But it was really fun to just be able to continue to see a lot of Bruce-esque movies. And I, to this day, am a big Bruce Lee fan. I think he is amazing. And around this time, I was a big fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger, going to see his movies in the theater. And I would see Van Damme's movies like Bloodsport, the VHS, at the Giant Eagle, where I would just, while my mom would shop, I would just, look at all the VHS tapes, which was a lot of fun. And one day I rented Bloodsport, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I remember renting Kickboxer, and that really sealed it for me. I started to become a big Van Damme fan, and I was renting all his movies at that point. I remember Death Warrant. I remember loving Lionheart. I remember seeing Double Impact in the theater, and I did like some Steven Seagal, like his first 2 or 3 movies, or 4. I think those are pretty solid for sure, but I was definitely on Team Van Damme, and I still am to this day. So I just kept renting movies at this time. I remember seeing Unbeaten 28 by Joseph Quo. I absolutely loved that. Like I said, lots of Bruceploitation. Soul Brothers of Kung Fu was a favorite. I got the Venoms there, Lo Mang and Bruce Lee, and it was just great. I definitely recommend that one. And having the Rick Myers book and always reading it, I read a ton about Jackie Chan, but I was kind of at the mercy of whatever movies were at these rental shops. I mentioned this in another video, but I had such bad luck. I kept renting just the worst Jackie Chan movies. I mean, they're not horrible like The Protector and different ones, but it didn't really showcase what Jackie Chan and the magic of it really was. I recall I rented 2 or 3 of his movies and I just wasn't having the Jackie Chan experience. And then finally I came across Fearless Hyena. And this movie, it's not always considered the best of the late 70s Jackie, but for me, it's up there because it was like the one that let me see his true talents and what the fuss about Jackie Chan really was. And I was a full lifelong fan from seeing just this one movie. And then I would start to rent different ones. I remember renting Drunken Master, and I just was fully hooked in and on the Jackie Chan train. And during this period, I would just be really missing those movies, Mortal Kombat, all these Venom movies I read about, I never saw. And I had movies that I would see glimpses of on Samurai Sunday when I was younger, but I just didn't know how I was ever going to see them again. It had been like 5 years, and I just didn't know how I could see them. So as I said, this quote-unquote dark period for watching these movies was about to come to an end when I bought this magazine right here, 1993 in the summer, Black Belt magazine. And I had always been into Inside Kung Fu and, as I said, the Ninja magazines, and I would buy Black Belt. So I was just, looking through this, checking out how to fight off 7 guys in a parking lot with a pair of keys, that type of stuff. And, you get to the back and it gets very ad heavy. And let's see if we could stumble upon this. So as I was going through the back here, I saw this page, Dragon Video Presents, and at the bottom I had hit the jackpot. It was an opportunity for me to start, I guess we could call this the bootleg era for me. These are all Shaw Brothers bootlegs, and I was over the moon. There was one part that I wasn't too excited about, was that right there. Even back in 1993 they were $40 each. So I had to, I guess, beg and ask my parents. I mean, they were always great sports about all this. And I remember the first one I ordered was Masked Avengers. Now, Masked Avengers was one that I saw back in the mid-'80s on television, and to be able to see it again, I was super excited. I remember waiting by the door every day when I thought it might be coming and looking for the UPS truck and asking my parents, is it coming today? Is it coming today? And eventually it came, and I got Masked Avengers. I could see it again. Then I was able to see Kid with the Golden Arm and rewatch Mortal Kombat. I think every 2 or 3 months I'd get another tape, and this is where I fell in love with them even more, and it was kind of like I had a chance now to see what I wanted to see, not just, only be able to rent what was down at Giant Eagle. So then I moved over to Advantage Video, which I also saw in another Kung Fu magazine a little later. And the prices were much better. I think it was like $12 to $18 for a tape. And I just kept going. I wish I could know who ran Advantage Video, because they would send me just awesome stuff, like recommendations they would throw in. I don't remember how it went down exactly, but I recalled at one point he sent me Drunken Master 2, and he sent me the 2 VHS copy of it. And my mind was so blown that this is one of my favorites of all time to this day. And in addition to this, I remember he also sent me this book here, the Encyclopedia of Martial Arts Movies. Now, this is my favorite book on the topic. It ends around 1994 or 95, whenever this was made, but I highly recommend this book. It is very in-depth, and it just great reviews, and I still read it to this day all the time. This is, in addition to the Rick Myers one, my favorite one on the topic. And in my personal journey, I saw a Kung Fu school on McKnight Road in Pittsburgh, and it said Rothrock's Kung Fu and Tai Chi. And I went and I started taking Shaolin Kung Fu off of Cynthia Rothrock's ex-husband, Master Rothrock. I think his name's Ernest Rothrock. And it was really cool. I did that for I think a year or two, and it was really nice to actually be learning the type of forms and movements I saw in these movies. So as it all went along, I was just getting deeper into different styles of these movies too. I got into Hard Boiled with Chow Yun-fat. Of course, the Venoms, who are still my favorite to this day. I was starting to get all their movies, all the bootlegs. And even though the quality on these bootlegs wasn't always the best, I still enjoyed being able to see them all. So the next thing I remember for the mid-90s was I think it was 1996, suddenly Jackie Chan's Rumble in the Bronx was being released in the theaters here in the US. And seeing that in the theater, I had it on VHS, but seeing it, I could just tell it was a great choice. To be honest, I thought it was kind of an odd choice because I owned it. I was like, okay, this is what they're showing of Jackie Chan. But seeing it in the theater, it just, people were, as I recall, applauding and so into it. And in the parking lot after, of course, everyone was doing all the moves as you do. And I was like, dang, Jackie Chan is like breaking America finally, because he had tried, to break into the market, like he did Cannonball Run with Burt Reynolds. Then he did The Protector, directed by Robert Klaus, who did Enter the Dragon. And he didn't really break through. But Rumble in the Bronx put him on the map in the US. And then it led to them releasing more of his movies. Then I saw Super Cop in the theater. I saw that, I think, honestly, 3 times, maybe 4 times. I'm going to say 3. And that's to this day, with Drunken Master 2, that's my favorite Jackie Chan movie. Him and Michelle Yeoh. I just could not believe seeing this on the big screen. My mind was blown. Then I remember seeing First Strike. What was the other one? Mr. Nice Guy. And that's pretty much, I remember, for the late 90s, what I was watching was a lot of Jackie Chan, of course all my bootlegs, but seeing these in the theater was just a great treat, and that led to Jackie Chan, of course, doing Rush Hour and becoming like a big Hollywood star. So then fast forwarding a few years, in 2002, I remember reading on the internet that the entire Shaw Brothers library had been acquired by Celestial Films for a really high amount, like $700 million or something. And I was like, whoa, and they were going to be completely restored off the original film stock and going to be sold. And I was like, oh, please let this all be released tomorrow. I was just so excited. So then I think it was late 2003, early 2004, I'd see it on the forums, people talking about it. I went to yesasia.com and I ordered the Venoms movie Invincible Shaolin and 5 Shaolin Masters, also by Chang Che. And when those 2 DVDs came, I cannot explain the jump in quality. I had Unbeatable Dragon, which is Invincible Shaolin. I had the VHS, which was even for bootlegs, it was such bad quality. I had to go and get, at Sears, I had to buy a COS DVD player. And there was a hack, you put numbers into it to make it region free using the remote. So since it was region free, you could play movies from Hong Kong, which were region 3. So I put on Invincible Shaolin and my jaw dropped. My first thought was, wow, it looks like a real movie, because the bootlegs have been like 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th generation copies of VHS that it started to look cartoon-like. I mean, it really... it was almost like, am I watching Hanna-Barbera or a Kung Fu movie at this point? Seeing the Celestial remaster and seeing Guok Choi, I remember at the opening of Invincible Shaolin, and it actually looked like almost a modern day quality. I could not believe it. And this was another huge leap, and I still to this day think this was the most important thing that happened to martial arts cinema and Hong Kong cinema, was Celestial Pictures acquiring that entire catalog of 700 plus movies and remastering them all, saving them because they were in horrible shape. What happened was a lot of the studios back then in 70s and late 70s, they didn't know that there would be VHS, DVD, and all these things, television replaying it. So what they would do is kind of like just move on and not really, they didn't put them in the vaults like EMI did with the Beatles master tapes by any means. They let them degrade, and they just kind of figured there'd be no use for them after they played them in the theaters at the time. So Celestial restoring those movies and preserving them forever was just such a big deal. And I was a kid in a candy store. I was 23 years old, but I could now dive into all the Shaw Brothers movies, every single Venom one, and see it like with a new set of eyes. I could not believe how good it looked. So my personal journey of martial arts kind of took an unexpected turn where I started to practice jiu-jitsu, and that led to me actually competing in MMA a few times at the Arnold Classic in Columbus, Ohio, which was a great experience. After that, I started taking jiu-jitsu in Pittsburgh, Pedro Sauer, Gracie School, Steel City Martial Arts, a great school, and did that for a while. And then when I moved to Los Angeles, I started taking jiu-jitsu at 10th Planet Van Nuys, and it was so fun to get back to doing tournaments again, and it's just been a great journey, and I love it. And talking about moving to Los Angeles, Quentin Tarantino has a theater called New Beverly, which I've mentioned on the channel I think a few times. I'd say 3 months after me moving here in 2015, he held Shaw Timber, where he just showed so many Shaw Brothers movies. And that was another thing for me. It just brought it all together. I was able to see Master Killer on the big screen, all the Venom movies I wanted to see, just so many different movies. Kid with the Golden Arm, which I thought was a good movie, I now consider to be a great Venom's movie. Seeing that on the big screen, everyone reacting and just applauding and all the reactions, that's the way I really think these movies are meant to be seen in a theater if you can. I highly recommend that. And last year, I started this Instagram channel and felt so great to be able to celebrate all these movies with these fellow fans. And I've met so many passionate fans along the way. And I want to emphasize that because that's one thing I didn't say. All along the way, I'd get my friends into these movies, and they still are to this day a lot of my lifelong friends, but I could never really run into anyone that were into Shaw Brothers movies before the internet. I remember one time at Movies Plus in Wexford, I spoke to a guy, and it was really cool that he knew of Five Deadly Venoms, but that was like in 1992. The next time I spoke to someone in person that knew Shaw Brothers and loved them was one other time in college, maybe 2 times in college, and then at Shaw Timber at Tarantino's theater, and these people knew so much about it standing outside. I was like, oh, I found my people. And that's why doing the Instagram was so fun. I would see all the different channels, Fanatical Dragon, Hong Kong Blurays, Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. I'd see all the pages, and then that led us to the Asian Cinema Circle, which is a collection of all of the YouTubers that we do collabs like this today. And it's just been so fun. And everyone on my Instagram and who comments down below on the YouTube, I've really enjoyed and appreciate being able to connect with everyone and just celebrate these films. So without going on too much longer, I think this video is going to be long enough. Thanks everyone for all the support, and if you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe. And it was really fun just giving a little insight today into how I got into martial arts films. Talk to you guys soon.